Good evening. Today is the 7th day of March, 2022. I'm Scott J. Hamilton, and this is the Hamilton Report. I'd like to thank you, first of all, for joining us this evening. And it's hard to believe that we were all in shorts and shirt sleeves on Saturday, only to be coming to work today in an extra heavy coat. It's going to be one of those weeks, but that's what life is like here in Oklahoma. The good news is that this time next week, when you tune in, it will be light outside because daylight savings time begins on Sunday morning. So, if nothing else, that'll give us all at least the illusion that spring is here to stay. But being Oklahomans, we know that there are all kinds of springs. There's real spring, there's whippoorwill spring, there's false winter. There's we have so many different names for all the same thing, which means weather that's just that acts on its own. But I am happy that you're here this evening because it's a real treat to have my guest on tonight. She was with us about a year ago, and it was such a good conversation. We had so many folks who really appreciated her being on the show that it's a pleasure to welcome her back. And I would encourage those of you who are watching, and we don't get all comments, but we get most of them. So if there's a question that you have or a statement that you'd like to make, by all means, please do put it in the comments, and we'll make sure that your voice is heard this evening. With that, we are celebrating Women's History Month, or my chair says, and I love this idea that it's not just Women's History Month. It's when it's demarked as Women's History Month, because we do know that women have always and are still making history every month of the year. And I, for one, am grateful for that because, Lord, it would not be the party without the women that we have working so diligently for the party. And with that, it's my privilege to welcome back to the Hamilton Report someone who is just a tireless worker on behalf of democracy and the Democratic Party. She is the president of the Oklahoma Federation for Democratic Women. And I'm happy to welcome back Jana Harkins. Jana, good evening.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
I am well, but I haven't. I've been busy, but not as busy as you have lately. It seems like you are meeting yourself coming and going this season around, and
That
that's
is true. And unfortunately, as we gear up, ramp up this election cycle, it's just going to get busier. But um, I'm still up for the challenge, I do believe.
I know you are. I love it when there's an adult in the room, and you are as contemporary as anybody I know. I mean, you are so well informed about issues and current events, but also about pop culture. You know what's happening in the world, and yet when you want your voice to be heard, it is heard, and it's always with sound reasoning and approach. And so that gives you a whole lot to work with, because when Janice speaks, people do listen, and I like to watch that happening, because not only are you an authoritative voice, you are certainly a veteran in this process we call politics. Before we talk about the Federation, I'd like to know a little more about you. How did you get involved in politics in the first place? And I know that wasn't yesterday or the day before.
No, I really kind of just stumbled into it. First of all, when you talk about representation matters, of course, the 1976 Democratic National Convention and Congresswoman Barbara Jordan speaking. She was one of the first women, but certainly the first African American woman to speak at the National Convention. And it was televised. And I remember sitting with my mom and my grandmother watching that, and it was just unbelievable. And it kind of sparked an interest then. But then in 1978, all of this having to do around the civil rights movement, I just happened to be in Kansas City when they had the special or the midterm Democratic convention, and it was talking about of all things, the Affirmative Action Plan.
Mm.
And that's when the Affirmative Action Plan actually began, was in 1978, and those conventions, as a result of what Fannie Lou Hamer and all those people did with the convention in 1968 and 72. So um, I just happened to be in Kansas City, and my family thought I was there to go to the Democratic convention. Back then, you could just walk in. So we just walked in because it was the thing to do. And I guess I just got the bug from there.
That's been a long time. That's over 40 years, and
Yes.
you're still at it. What what keeps you motivated to keep doing this? Because I mean, you're retired from your professional job, and so I'm interested to know what is it that wakes you up, that keeps you moving forward, that keeps you plugged in and energized behind Democrats.
I think, well, I know that it's the young people, the young women and men that we have involved in the party right now, especially the ones, the African American and Hispanic, the Native American youth that we have that are involved. Because I was a young person involved in the party years ago, but I didn't have a voice. They had, it took years for me to develop this voice and the respect that I have. But back then, I was a woman, I was African American. I can remember lots of slights that were afforded to me and others. Um, but now to see the opportunities that these young people have, the opportunity to share their voice, their intellect, um, and just be involved at every level. The fact that our chairwoman, Alicia Andrews, is an African American woman, a young African American woman, is one of the things that I'm most proud of, because I've been on the battlefield. I've been a foot soldier in the Democratic Party a long time, and seeing these changes and how people embrace the voices of the young people. That's what motivates me. And I want to, every time a young person gets an award, I feel like it's me getting an award, because it just makes my heart sing.
And that's a powerful statement, and I will absolutely agree with you. It seems like young people today are more concerned about what's going on around them. They're concerned about the planet, our climate. They're concerned about equality in areas that um, are not siloed. So it's not just the advancement of women or LGBTQ rights. It's really more about advocating on behalf of everyone and rising everyone's position. And I've noticed that across the board. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Just before we came on the air, you were telling me about some young women that you've been working with that culminated yesterday in a Women's History Month event. Tell our viewers about that, because that's exciting to me.
Okay, well, in addition to my work with the party and various other things, I'm a member of the Edmond branch of the American Association of University Women, and our annual Women's History Month event is what we call the Girls Hall of Honor, and we actually honor one seventh grade girl from each of Edmond's middle schools. And I've had the opportunity over the past month to 6 weeks to work with these young women to record their presentations. And as I mentioned to you earlier, the creativity and the confidence, and it's just unbelievable. um, and these are young women that have grown up in the public school system here in Oklahoma. So it's it just shows that there's just a lot of propaganda and things like that going on with our school system. But yeah, that was my first Women's History Month event actually this month, and I'm looking forward to a couple of more. But I love working with the young women in the Edmond public school system.
That's really outstanding. With regard to your work with the Federation, I know that it's kind of all encompassing. Here's a photo that was taken at the Capitol of our Federation, and you are organized to the point where you have groups, women's groups around the state. Is that right?
That's right. And unfortunately, we've taken a toll, the pandemic has taken its toll on our Oklahoma Federation Democratic Women, just like it has with our county and congressional district organizations. But we're struggling to maintain the clubs that we have. Currently, we did have 14 clubs. We lost two. And so now we're just trying to keep the 12 clubs that we have energized, but we're always looking to add more clubs. Here in the Oklahoma City area, we have two clubs, the Georgia Brown Group and also the South Oklahoma City Women. And, my goal is before I leave office, which will be in less than a year now, um, that we establish a central Oklahoma County chapter at least. And then I'd also like to have one in Pottawatomie County, Canadian County, and we only have one club in the Tulsa area. So that's there's opportunities for growth that were stymied by the pandemic, but we're still hopeful and we're still out there working, especially we have this unique opportunity to elect a governor and two U.S. senators. There's a lot of work to be done. We're very proud of saying that the Democratic women are the life of the party.
Mhm.
We are going to make sure that we are in the mix with this election cycle.
Well, and I absolutely concur that work and the women who do the work are the backbone behind all of the good things that happen within the party. It's very interesting when I look at some of the historical photos from not even that long ago, not 40 years ago or 30 years ago, but even 20 years ago. The complexion was very different of the party, as was the gender makeup of people who were involved in the party. And I'm grateful to say that today we have a diverse group of people in leadership, not just at the state level, but at many levels throughout the party around the state. You mentioned Oklahoma City. I know that the Georgia Brown folks do really good work. I've been to a number of events of the South Oklahoma City women's group, and they're always fun, but they're always with a real strong purpose, and that is getting more Democrats elected. How how do the various groups fit into the federation?
Into the Federation,
Hmm.
well, they are, first of all, any you need 10 members to become a club. And membership in the Oklahoma Federation is not mandatory. For instance, we have the Edmond Democratic Women's Group that are not part of the Federation. There's a Norman's Women's Democratic Group, not part of the Federation. Of course, we would love to have them. There are some benefits to being involved um, in the Oklahoma Federation Democratic Women. One of those being that we have a seat on the Oklahoma Democratic Party Central Committee, which is not the case with lots of states. It's unbelievable the heartache that a lot of our women across the United States are going through, just trying to get recognition with their state parties, with their county parties. But we are blessed and don't even know it here in Oklahoma in so many ways. But each of our clubs has to have certification each year from their county party. And I recently had or read a statement on Facebook that said, we're thinking about disbanding our women's group and just joining in with with the county organization. And it dismayed me because we are a part of the Democratic Party, an integral part. Each of our clubs should be working hand in hand with their county and congressional district clubs or organizations on a regular basis. In addition to getting the annual certification, we need to be involved with the county parties. There's still lots of things, a lot of networking that our auxiliary organizations can do that can't be done with our regular organizations. So as the Oklahoma Federation of Democratic Women, we're also associated with the national group. We have members that have traditionally been part of the governing body of the National Federation of Democratic Women. Currently, Debbie Thompson from Kearney. She is the fourth vice president of the National Federation of Democratic Women. And just to kind of give you an idea, the fifth vice president of the NFDW is is Christine Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's granddaughter. I mean, not granddaughter. I'm sorry, her daughter. So, it's a dynamic group of women that compose the NFDW board, and we have lots of programs presented at the national level. We have had several programs this past year with the Oklahoma Federation of Democratic Women about voter registration. We're gearing up right now for our state convention, which will, out of caution, we're planning on going back to the embassy suites this year, but we're trying to be a little bit cautious. And so our convention this year will be virtual. It is Saturday, April 9th. Information is going out on that event as we speak. And as a result, in conjunction with that, we will be having several plenary sessions in the week leading up to the convention. One of those being a legislative update that will be led by our former state president, Debbie Hogue Downing, who is what I call a Democratic extraordinaire. She is just phenomenal. She will be leading that panel, and there will be several of our state legislators participating in that. So we're going to have a very involved and educational convention week coming up the week of April the 3rd, which will culminate in our state convention on Saturday, April the 9th.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, Jana. It occurs to me that you have been a part of the Oklahoma Democratic Party from a time when Democrats held a majority in the House and the Senate, and even in the governor's mansion. So you've seen things swing, and it feels like we're starting to make some progress back in the positive direction for us. The question is, how do we move forward with a Republican majority, and is it even possible in Oklahoma? What's your take on that question?
I believe that it is, and I think that our current, there's only, 18 now Democrats in the Oklahoma legislature. But, every day I'm seeing where our Democratic Leaders are passing bills out of committee, passing bills on the floor. You know, if they stay focused on what is actually important to the people, and not get hung up with all these fringe things that the Republican, the baiting that they're trying to do. If they're, and, I have no doubt, it's very obvious that Senator Floyd and Representative Virgin, Representative Munson, and all of those people that are currently in the legislature are focused on just representing their districts and making positive change. I mean, my big issue, and I know that there's some momentum going with it, but I don't know if we'll be able to keep it up this year. But it's something that we just need to stick to, is fines and fees. Fines and fees are killing our families.
Yes.
Um, we have got to get a revenue stream built into our state budget that alleviates some of this. And then it not only does fines and fees, um, almost destitute have sent people into poverty. It builds little fiefdoms at these with these county district attorneys and sheriff's offices, and it's got to stop. It really, really, really has to stop. So yeah, I think it's possible, and it's just keeping the focus on the right things, and I think that our legislators are doing just that.
Well, I appreciate that so much because, sometimes, and you know this so well, that you can be so in the midst of the work that when you raise your head, you look around and you still see that we've got a difficult landscape to navigate. But I do appreciate your optimism. And I guess the bottom line is, if you didn't feel that we had hope and a real chance here, you wouldn't be spending your time and your energy and your resources doing the work that you do. So I think
Right,
that in that
exactly.
regard, you're absolutely leading by example. Um, another question here from Jody Darnell says she just moved to rural Oklahoma in K County. Is there any hope for a group getting started in K County, Jana?
Well, we have an active group in K County. Unfortunately, just recently we lost our president, but the vice president stepped up. It's a very small group, but they meet at the VOTAC, and if you put your contact information, your email in the chat, then I will gladly have someone reach out to you and let you know. Uh, I've been up to Ponca City a couple of times. I know that they've had one of the things that they were doing in K County. They have a Christmas um, project that they've worked on for a number of years, because the K County jail, I guess, houses a lot of people that have come over and they're waiting for their hearings, who have crossed the border, illegally, and they're waiting on the hearings. And a lot of them are housed in K County, believe it or not.
Huh.
Uh, uh, about 200 women. And so the K County Democratic Party, Federation of Democratic Women, has worked with them as well.
That's great to know. Well, I'm glad, Joni, that you asked, and we will get you connected. And I will say that for anyone viewing this, particularly those of you who are not viewing it live, but will see this program later on Facebook or YouTube, if you have interest, and I hope that this conversation will spark an interest, if you have interest in working with other women dedicated to making positive change in Oklahoma, if you will call our office. I'm going to ask Angela to put the phone number up for our office here in Oklahoma City. We will then facilitate getting you connected, I promise you, with a federation that's as close as possible to your home. Jana, let me ask you, You talked about the young people and how inspiring that they are to you. And I know that you find inspiration from the women that you work with regularly. But looking back, is there someone that comes to mind specifically in Oklahoma politics that you think back of fondly and you say that's someone who made a real difference?
I do. Representative Freddie Williams. Freddie was, I like to say, she was my grandmother's friend that she gave to me when she decided when Miss Williams decided that she was going to run for office, and my grandmother said, "I know the person that you need to work with." But
Mm,
of course, I've known Miss Williams all of my life. I know that she's a great historian with regard to Oklahoma, Oklahoma history, Oklahoma City history. She's a jazz enthusiast. Um, it's just unbelievable. You know, decided that she would run for the school board here in Oklahoma City. She won that, and after being there a few years and making positive change, she ran for House District 99. And she was just an inspiration and was a mentor to so many young women in the Democratic Party. As far as joining a club, which I joined the Georgia Brown Democratic Women's Club back in 1978, she was the person who took me to the home of the president at that time for a meeting. And we used to have these little meetings and in the home, and every if it was your turn to host, you'd have to make tea and little tea cakes, and you sat around and you talked about voter registration and how important it was. And then if we got really fired up, we would go to one of the ladies worked, I won't say the name of the organization, but had several phone lines. And we would end up there just calling people and asking them if they were planning to go vote, or actually we'd leave our Georgia Brown meeting and go walk a couple of blocks. And it was just a simpler time, but we were very, very progressive.
and that obviously that inspires you even to this day. Jenna, we are just about out of time, but I want to say on a very personal level how much it means to me to be able to work with you because I learn something every time we talk, and you're so full of history, so full of knowledge, and especially your enthusiasm to keep us moving forward. It means the world to me.
I have
Before
one
I
quick thing.
Sure,
Targeted voter registration. We must get busy now with targeted. That means making sure that we're not registering a lot of people that do not think the same way that we do.
that's right. And anyone who would like help with that, again, reach out, call our office, and we will very happily give you some assistance in helping register voters. Before I let you go, COVID has gotten in the way of us having the lunch that we talked about this time last year. Shout out to Florence's restaurant. Florence was recently just handed a Chef's Beard Award, one of the highest culinary awards in this country. So we must make plan to get over there and have lunch together soon, Jana.
Tomorrow's chicken and dressing day for anybody that
Oh
wants to
boy.
get out.
Janet, thanks for joining us. I'll talk to you real soon, my friend.
Okay, have a good evening.
I hope that you enjoyed our visit this evening, and I hope that you became inspired to want to do something more, not just for your party, but for the people in Oklahoma, the people that count on us to raise their voices. That's something that our women in our party do, and it's something that I'm so grateful for. Before I leave, I want to ask you to please make it a point to join us next Monday evening. Very different kind of show. I have two guests, the executive director of the Florida Democratic Party and the co-executive director of the Texas Democratic Party. Since all three of us are laboring under ultra-conservative Republicans as governor, it'll be interesting to see how their work and our work align and what we can learn from each other. That's 6:30 next Monday evening right here on the Hamilton Report. That's our time for tonight. I thank you for joining us, and I hope that you have a great week. Stay weather aware this week, and I look forward to seeing you this time next Monday. From all of us at the Oklahoma Democratic Party, thanks for tuning in. I'm Scott J. Hamilton. Good night.